The eviction notice she was filing had her own grandmother's address on it. Listen, K-Fam. Nikisha Palmer is 27. She waits tables at Marlowe's Diner. Cherry red dress, white apron, her missing father's watch heavy on her wrist. She serves coffee to the same people the fund is throwing into the street. Then an old Korean woman walks in on purpose. A jade pendant, a faded photo of Nikisha's father and a little boy, half a metal token laid on the counter. Omo. Before the woman can speak, a blonde in a forest green coat storms in screaming, "Imposter," rips the pendant away, shoves the old lady to the floor. Nikisha doesn't think. She throws her body over the woman and blocks the papers. Then the door opens again. A man in black, broad as a wall, a dragon tattoo climbing the left side of his neck. They call him the Quiet One, Kang Min-jae. His eyes lock on the pendant, then on the old woman's face, and one word leaves his mouth that nobody in that diner was ready for. IU. What that woman came to say next binds all three of them together forever. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click join to become a member and help our channel. Table 9 wanted their check split 4 ways, and Nikisha Palmer counted the coins into 4 little piles before any of them asked twice. 16 years of tips lived in her fingers. She didn't need to look at the register. She looked at the door instead, because the man in the graphite suit had been sitting at the counter for 40 minutes and hadn't touched his coffee once. "Refill, hun?" she asked Ruth's oldest regular, an old trucker named Bill, and topped his mug before the yes. The diner ran loud at that hour. Fork on plate, the flat top hissing, the little bell over the door snapping every 90 seconds. Marlowe's Diner had one big window facing Halston Street, and through that window, you could see the whole block Nikisha had grown up behind. The shoe repair, the laundromat, the corner grocery with the green awning. 3 of those storefronts had white paper taped inside the glass now. She knew what the white paper said. She'd read it upside down from the sidewalk that morning. The man in the graphite suit slid a folder onto the counter and turned it toward her. He didn't smile. "You're Elijah Palmer's girl." Not a question. Nikisha set the coffee pot back on the burner. Her high-side ponytail swung once against her shoulder and went still. Around her neck, under the collar of the cherry-red dress, a man's watch hung on a thin chain, too big for her wrist, so she wore it where nobody could take it. "I'm working," she said. 10 minutes of your time. He tapped the folder. "It's about your grandmother's building." Ruth Calder came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on the beige apron, glasses swinging on their cord, and she read the whole thing in 1 second flat. The suit, the folder, the girl gone quiet. Ruth had owned this diner 30 years. She could smell a repo man through a closed door. "Sir, this is a place of business," Ruth said, sweet as pie and hard as a skillet. "You want to eat? I'll feed you. You want to talk paperwork? There's a bench outside." The man didn't move for a beat. Then he stood, buttoned his jacket, and left the folder on the counter like a tip. The bell snapped behind him. Nikisha didn't open the folder. She already knew the name printed on the corner of every page in this neighborhood lately. Halverson Cornerstone Fund. She'd typed those 3 words into her phone at 2 in the morning more times than she'd admit. She carried the folder to the back, past the pass window, and slid it under the order pad on the prep shelf. Then she went back out and took Table 12's order, because Table 12 was 4 construction guys who tipped in cash and didn't like waiting. 2 Reubens, 1 patty melt, 1 short stack, and don't let Marco burn the rye this time, she called into the kitchen, and Marco flipped her off with a spatula, and for a second, the block outside didn't exist. She moved through the room, the way she'd moved through it since she was 19. When Ruth hired her off the sidewalk, with a swollen eye she never explained, and a rent she couldn't make. Table to table. Read the head before the mouth opened. The old ones wanted their coffee hot, and their silence respected. The rushed ones wanted speed and no chatter. The lonely ones wanted her to remember their grandkid's name, and she did. All of them. 100 grandkids filed in her head, the same place she filed the eviction dates. It was a small talent, and it was hers. You could build a whole life on knowing what a room needed before the room asked. She had. The construction guys wanted their check by 2 on the dot, because the site whistle went at 2:15. She had it printed and torn before they reached for a wallet, and one of them slid her a folded 10 and said, "You're too smart for this place, Kesha," the way men said it, meaning a compliment, not hearing the insult in it. She just smiled and pocketed the 10. This place had fed her when nothing else would. Smart didn't pay Grandma Cora's rent. Tips did. For a second. Ruth caught her by the elbow near the register during the lull. What'd he want? Same thing they all want. Nikisha untied and retied her apron, though it hadn't come loose. Grandma Cora's building, 18 units. Fund bought the note in the spring. Now they're calling it redevelopment. Redevelopment. Ruth said the word like it tasted bad. That's what they told the Kims before they papered up that grocery. That's what they told everybody. Nikisha nodded at the window, at the 3 white pages across the street. Mr. Farrow, the Kims, the laundromat lady, on. All 3 got the same letter. 90 days, then 60, then a man in a suit comes and it's 30. She'd know. She'd filed every one of those letters herself. Not on purpose, at first. Farrow from the shoe repair couldn't read the legal print without his glasses, and his glasses had broken, so he'd brought his stack to the diner one slow Tuesday and asked Nikisha to help him sort what mattered. She'd gone through it at the end of the counter with a pen. After that, they all started coming, on with her plastic sleeve of documents, the Kims with a shoebox, the old barber 2 doors down, who just wanted somebody to tell him what the words meant. So Nikisha kept a folder of her own now, behind the diner's coat rack, thick with other people's evictions. She hadn't meant to become the neighborhood's filing cabinet. It just turned out she was the only one on the block who read the fine print and didn't flinch. And every single letter, every one, carried the same 3 words in the corner: Halverson Cornerstone Fund. The same fund that owned Grandma Cora's building now. Nikisha wiped down the counter where the man had sat. His coffee was cold and full. She dumped it, rinsed the mug, and set it upside down on the towel. At 2:15, the rush broke for good. Ruth sent Marco out to smoke and told Nikisha to eat something standing up, which was the closest Ruth got to affection. Nikisha didn't eat. She pulled the man's folder out from under the order pad and read it at the end of the counter, the way she'd read everybody else's. It was worse than the others. The others got 90 days. Grandma Cora's building had already burned through 90 and 60 both, while nobody was looking, because the notices had gone to the building super, and the super worked for the fund, and the super had thrown them in a drawer. 30 days. That's what the folder said now. 30 days for 18 apartments full of people who'd lived there their whole lives, and one of those apartments was 4B, 3rd floor rear, where a woman of 79 kept a jade green sofa she refused to reupholster because Nikisha's grandfather had picked the fabric. Nikisha read it twice. She put it back under the pad. She kept her breathing even, because Ruth was watching from the kitchen, and Ruth would come running, and if Ruth came running, Nikisha would break, and she didn't have time to break during a shift. She touched the watch through her dress instead. It was her father's. Elijah Palmer, 42 years old the last time anybody saw him. A freight driver with arms like cable and a tired, warm smile. He'd left for a run one November night 11 years back, and the truck came home 3 days later, parked neat at the depot, keys in the ignition, cab wiped clean, and no Elijah, no note, no body. The company said he'd quit. The police said grown men leave. Grandma Cora said her son didn't leave anybody, and then she stopped saying it out loud, because saying it out loud didn't bring him back. He'd left 2 things in the apartment: the watch, which he never traveled without, which meant wherever he went fast, and a notebook. Nikisha carried the notebook in her bag every day the way some people carry a photo. She pulled it out now, in the lull, and set it on the counter and opened it to the middle where it always fell open, because she'd handled that page 10,000 times. The notebook made no sense. That was the thing about it. Half of it was ordinary: mileage, gas receipts, a phone number for a mechanic in Newark, and half of it was columns, dates down one side, a short code in the middle, 2 letters and a number, over and over, and a dollar amount that never matched anything, that climbed and dropped for no reason a freight log would climb and drop. TG4, HR9, TG4 again, a date, a number in the thousands. She'd shown it to 2 lawyers, back when she still had money for lawyers. One said it looked like a shipping manifest. One said it looked like a man keeping 2 sets of books, and she should burn it. She hadn't burned it. She'd read those codes until they lived behind her eyes, and she still couldn't crack them, and the not cracking sat in her chest like a stone she'd learned to breathe around. "You gonna tell your grandmother?" Ruth had come up quiet, drying a glass she'd already dried. Nikisha closed the notebook. "Tonight? You want company?" "I want 30 extra days and a good lawyer, Ruth. Company I got." She said it light. She'd learned to say the heavy things light, or not at all. Ruth set the glass down and looked at her over the tops of her glasses, and for once, didn't have a comeback. She just squeezed Nikisha's shoulder once, hard, and went to flip the sign for the afternoon slow. The bell snapped. Pharaoh came in from the shoe repair with his broken glasses held together by tape and a new envelope in his brown hands, and his face did the thing all their faces did now, that careful hope, like maybe this time the words would say something different if the right person read them. "Nikisha," he said, "you have a minute?" They send another one. She didn't have a minute. She had a 30-day notice on her grandmother in her back, and a notebook full of codes she couldn't read, and a folder behind the coat rack getting fatter every week. She had feet that had been standing since 6, and a manager who was really a friend, pretending to be a manager, so she'd take a break she wouldn't take. "Course, Mr. Pharaoh." She pulled out the stool beside her and patted it. "Sit. Let me see." She read his letter with the pen moving under the lines, translating the fund's language into human. 90 days meant 30, voluntary meant forced. Fair market relocation assistance meant a check that wouldn't cover the deposit on a place half the size across town. She circled the deadline. She wrote the real number in the margin in her own hand, so he'd have it plain. Pharaoh watched her pen the way you watch a doctor's face. "Is bad? It's the same bad as everybody's." She capped the pen. "But you're not gonna sign anything, and you're not gonna move anything, and you're gonna bring me every paper they send you. Okay? Don't let them talk to you without me in the room." He nodded like she'd handed him a rope. That was the part that scared her, how much they trusted her. She was a waitress with a broken family and a notebook she couldn't read, and somehow she'd become the wall this whole block was standing behind. Walls fall down. Nobody wanted to think about walls falling down. She added Pharaoh's letter to the folder behind the coat rack. The folder didn't close all the way anymore. She had to bend the cardboard to make it stay. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket, while Pharaoh was still folding his letter. She knew the ring. She stepped to the end of the counter and answered low. "Grandma, you eating?" Cora Palmer's voice came thin down the line, but the spine in it never thinned. "You sound like you skipping meals again." I'm at work, Grandma. I eat at work. Coffee is not a meal, Nikisha Renee. Nikisha smiled at the counter in spite of everything. 3 words in, and the woman had already found the middle name. Why you calling? You never call during my shift. A pause. In the pause, Nikisha heard the TV in 4B, the same game show Cora had watched at 4 o'clock for 30 years, and under it the little scrape of a chair on old linoleum. Man came by the building today, Cora said. Nice suit. Knocked on every door with a clipboard. Told Mrs. Ocampo downstairs she had 30 days. Another pause. He didn't knock on mine. Skipped 4B clean. You know what that means, baby, when they skip your door. It meant they thought they already had it. Nikisha's hand closed around the edge of the counter. It doesn't mean anything, she said. Don't sign for anything. Don't let anybody pass the door. I'm coming tonight. I'm not scared of a clipboard, child. I know you're not. That door is mine. I know it is. Nikisha closed her eyes. It's yours. I'm coming tonight. Watch your show. She hung up before her voice could do the thing it wanted to do. She put the phone away. Ruth was pretending to count straws. They skipped her door, Nikisha said. To nobody. To the room. Ruth set the straws down. That's confidence. That's them thinking it's done. She came around the end of the counter and stood close. Voice dropped so the booths couldn't catch it. Kesha, you've been carrying this whole block on your back for a year, filing their papers, reading their bad news out loud so they don't have to. When's somebody gonna carry yours? I don't need carrying. I need 30 days to turn into 90 and a judge who reads. That's not what I asked. Nikisha picked the notebook back up off the counter, just to have her father's handwriting in her hands. She ran her thumb down the column of codes she couldn't read. TG4, a date, a number, HR9. The stone in her chest turned over. He knew something, she said quietly. My daddy, look at this. Freight drivers don't keep 2 columns. Freight drivers keep 1. Where they went, what they hauled. This, she tapped the page. This is somebody hiding a second thing inside the first thing. Same funds on Grandma's building, Ruth. Same fund papered up half this street. I keep thinking if I could just read what he wrote. You've been thinking that for 11 years. So I'll think it 11 more. She closed the notebook. It's all I got of him that talks. The afternoon went the way afternoons went. Coffee, pie, a birthday for a kid at table 5, where Ruth came out banging a spoon on a pot because they didn't do singing. A tour bus that never came. The light through the big window turned from white to gold and started laying long across the checkered floor. And Nikisha refilled the ketchups and married the mustards and did the small 100 things that made a shift a shift. A young couple came in around 4 and sat at the window with a real estate app open between them, scrolling photos of the block like it was already empty, like the people in it were furniture to be hauled. Nikisha took their order. 2 lattes the diner didn't make, then 2 coffees when she told them so, and she heard the girl say the word potential about the laundromat where Ann had washed this neighborhood's sheets for 20 years. She refilled their water and said nothing. Saying something wasn't the job. The folder behind the coat rack was the job. She thought about Ann's face when the fund man came. She thought about the Kim's shoebox. She thought about how every one of them had looked at her like she was a lawyer when she was a girl who dropped out of community college the semester her father's truck came home empty, because grief costs money, and so does rent, and there'd been Grandma Cora to keep standing. She was thinking the whole time about how to say it to Grandma Cora. 30 days. There was no soft version. Cora Palmer had buried a husband and lost a son and raised a granddaughter on a housekeeper's back, and she'd told Nikisha once, plain, over greens on a Sunday, they can take the money, baby. They've been taking the money since before you were born. What they can't have is my front door. You understand me? That door is mine. 30 days on the door. Nikisha wiped the same clean spot on the counter 3 times. Near 5, before the dinner girl came on, she stepped into the back hall to change her shoes, and she stood a second in the quiet by the coat rack, one flat off, the folder of the neighborhood's whole slow drowning against her hip. She took the watch out from under her collar and held it in her palm. It had stopped at 11:40 on some November night 11 years gone. She'd never wound it. If she wound it, the time he stopped would be gone, and it was the only piece of the minute she had. TG4, HR9. The codes ran behind her eyes. She could almost hear him. That's how the not knowing worked. 11 years and she could still call up the exact weight of his laugh. The smell of diesel and mint gum on his jacket. The way he'd say "baby girl" low against her forehead when he came off a long run. A man like that did not park his truck neat and walk into nothing. Somebody made him nothing. And somebody was still making the whole block nothing, one white page at a time, under the same 3 words. She just couldn't prove the line between the two, not yet. She folded the chain back under her collar and squared her shoulders the way Cora had taught her. Chin up, girl. They don't get to see it. Kesha, Ruth's voice from the front. Careful. Somebody here for you. Nikisha put the watch away. She wasn't expecting anybody. Grandma Cora didn't drive. The fund men came at the counter, not to the back. She pulled her flat back on and came out wiping her hands, ready for the graphite suit again, ready to say the bench outside line herself this time. It wasn't the suit. Standing just inside the door, small and straight and out of place among the vinyl booths, was a Korean woman near 70, in a moss-green cardigan, a long floral scarf, delicate round glasses, and one green stone hanging in a gold frame against her chest. She held an old photograph in both hands like it might blow away, and she was looking at Nikisha the way you look at someone you've been walking toward for a very long time. The whole diner had gone a little quiet without deciding to. The woman stepped forward. Her eyes moved once to the chain at Nikisha's collar, to the shape of the watch under the cherry-red cloth, and something crossed her refined, tired face that Nikisha had no name for. You have his eyes, the woman said, soft, in careful English. Elijah's girl. And she turned the photograph around. The photograph shook a little in Hyejin's hand, and Nikisha took it before she could think about why. 2 men and a boy on a loading dock. One of the men was her father, younger, thinner, the tired smile not yet tired. His arm hung over the shoulder of a Korean man she didn't know, and between them stood a boy, maybe 9, black hair falling over serious eyes, holding something small and metal up to the camera like it was treasure. Behind them, a crate. On the crate, a stamp she couldn't read. That's Elijah, Nikisha said. Her voice came out flat. It had to come out flat, or it would come out wrong. That's Elijah, Hyejin agreed. Who's the boy? Hyejin's thumb moved to the pendant at her throat. The jade caught the diner light and threw it back green. She unclasped it. Slow, both hands, the way you handle a thing that has traveled a long way to get to you, and she set it on the counter between them, next to the photograph. My son, she said. Nikisha looked at the pendant. She'd seen it turn earlier, a small green oval in a gold frame, and she'd filed it the way she filed everything. A detail, a shape, a thing to remember. Now it sat on Ruth's chipped formica, like it belonged to another world entirely, and it did. Hyejin reached into the cloth bag on her lap. Out came a paper napkin folded around something hard. She unfolded it on the counter. A piece of metal, dull, the size of a large coin, but torn. One clean edge, and one edge ripped jagged, like it had been snapped in half by a machine. Half a token. On the flat face, half a word stamped in, the letters cut where the metal ended. Nikisha's hand went to her chest before she told it to. Under her collar, the watch, her father's watch, stopped at 11:40, warm from her own body. He had the other half, Hee-jin said. And it was not a question, and it was not a guess. It was a woman, putting down the last card in a game she'd been holding for 11 years. Ma'am, Ruth had come around the counter, dish towel over one shoulder, glasses down on their cord. You want coffee? Tea? You look like you walked a ways. I walked from the station, Hyejin said. Thank you. Tea. Ruth went for the kettle and didn't take her eyes off the old woman doing it. Ruth had run this counter 30 years. She knew the difference between a customer and an arrival. This was an arrival. Nikisha turned the half token in the light. The stamped letters read Orner, cut mid-word. She thought of the pasta under her order pad, the folder she'd hidden 2 hours ago. Halverson Cornerstone Fund. Cornerstone. Snap a token stamped Cornerstone in half, and one man walks out with Orner, and the other walks out with C, and neither half means anything until they're back together. She set it down very carefully. Where did you get this? She said. I kept it. Hye-jin folded her small hands. I kept it for a long time in a place they did not think to look. A woman my age, in a house that is not her own. Nobody searches her. Her English was careful, each word set down like a stone across a river. Your father gave the other half to a girl. He told my son, if something happens, the girl in the red dress at Marlowe's will have the rest. He did not say your name, he said the red dress. Her eyes moved over the cherry fabric, the white collar, the apron. He was right. The kettle started to whine. You knew my father. Nikisha heard her own words land wrong. Too fast. 3 of them stacked on top of each other. She slowed. When? Before you were born. And after. Hee-jin looked at the photograph, at the boy holding up his treasure. He worked for my husband. Then my husband died, and Elijah worked for the ones who took what my husband built. He did not know that at first. When he knew, she stopped. Her hand found the empty place at her throat where the pendant had been. When he knew, he tried to give it back. That is a dangerous thing to try. Ruth set the tea down. Steam climbed off it. He tried to give what back? Nikisha said. Everything. Hyejin wrapped both hands around the cup and didn't drink. The proof. What the cargo really carried. Whose names signed for it. He wrote it down in a book, in a language only he understood, and then he did the smart thing and the terrible thing at the same time. He split it. Half here, half. The bell over the door didn't ring so much as it was struck. A woman came through it like weather. Long forest green coat, structured at the shoulders, moving fast enough that the hem snapped at her calves. Golden blonde hair in waves that didn't move even when the rest of her did. She was tall, and she was already talking before the door swung shut behind her, and her voice cut across the diner, clean and cold. There you are. Hyejin's cup stopped halfway to nowhere. The blonde woman crossed the floor in 6 strides. She didn't look at Nikisha. She didn't look at Ruth. She had eyes only for the old woman on the stool, and those eyes were the color of ice over slate. You stupid, stubborn woman, she said, and her English was American and smooth, and it made Hee-jin's careful sentences sound like a foreign country. Do you know how many people are looking for you? Evelyn. Hee-jin's chin came up. Just an inch. You should not have come here. Neither should you. Evelyn's gaze finally moved, down, to the counter, to the photograph and the pendant, and the torn half of metal laid out in a row. Something happened in her face, a tightening, a hunger. Oh, she said softly. Oh, you brought them. You actually brought them out of the house. She reached. Nikisha's hand got there first, flat on the counter, covering the half token, before Evelyn's fingers closed on air. For the first time, Evelyn looked at her, really looked. took in the red dress, the braids, the young face, the hand pinning the medal to the formica. Her mouth curved into something that was built to look like a smile. "You," she said. "You're the waitress. Of course you are." She straightened, smoothed the front of her coat with 2 fingers, unhurried now, as if the room had just become hers. "Sweetheart, I don't know what she told you, but this woman is not well. She wanders. She collects things, photographs, trinkets, stories. She tells people she's someone's mother." Evelyn's voice dropped into a register of practiced sympathy. "It's very sad. I'm her family. I've come to take her home." "She said her name is Seo Hyejin," Nakisha said. "She says a great many names." Evelyn's smile didn't reach anything. "Give me the pendant, dear, and the picture, and we'll be out of your hair. They're hers. They're stolen." The sympathy dropped off Evelyn's face like a coat off a hook. "That jade belongs to my family. That photograph belongs to my family. And that," her eyes flicked to Nakisha's hand, "whatever that is under your hand, it belongs to my family too. So let's not make this a scene." "It's already a scene," Ruth said from behind the counter. She hadn't moved, but her hand had found the edge of the register. "And it's my scene. This is my diner. You want to take anybody anywhere. You do it slow and you do it talking. Or you do it with the police, because I've got the number memorized." Evelyn didn't even glance at her. "Hyejin," she said the name like a command. "Get up." The old woman set her cup down. Her hands weren't steady, but her voice was. "I am not going with you. I am not confused. I know exactly where I am, and I know exactly who she is." She looked at Nakisha. "Elijah's girl. I have been trying to reach you for a very long time. They kept me where—" Evelyn moved. It was fast, and it was practiced, and it was ugly under the smooth coat and the styled hair. She reached past Nakisha, past the hand on the token, and she got the pendant instead. Her fingers closed on the gold frame and she pulled, and the delicate chain that Hyejin had already unclasped simply came away in her fist, jade and all. Hyejin came off the stool grabbing for it. "That is my husband's. That is my son's. Give it. Sit down." Evelyn put her free hand flat on the old woman's shoulder and shoved. It wasn't a large motion. That was the thing Nakisha would remember. It wasn't a punch, it wasn't rage, it was casual. The kind of shove you'd give a door that stuck. And Hyejin was 64 years old and weighed maybe 100 pounds soaking wet, and she went down. The stool went one way, she went the other. Her hip caught the edge of the counter, and then the floor caught the rest of her, and the small sound she made when she landed was worse than a scream, because it was so quiet. Nakisha was already there. She didn't decide to move. Her body decided. She came off her own stool and around and down onto her knees on the tile between Evelyn and the fallen woman, and she put herself there, her back to Evelyn, her arms going around the small shaking shoulders, her braids swinging forward over one side. "I've got you," she said, low, right into the gray hair. "I've got you. I've got you. You're okay. Don't get up. Just breathe. I've got you." She'd done this before. Not this, never this, but the shape of it. Cora on the bathroom tile 2 winters back, hip like glass, and Nakisha on her knees saying the same nothing words that were really only one word said many ways: stay. Her hands knew where to go without asking her. One flat between the shoulder blades, one under the arm, weight taken slow. She could feel the old woman's heart going through the beige blouse. Quick and light, a bird against a window. Hyejin's hand clutched at Nakisha's apron. Her glasses had come off and skidded under the counter. Up close, she looked every one of her years, and none of them mattered, because her eyes had found Nakisha's face and locked there like it was the only fixed thing in a spinning room. "The papers," Hyejin whispered. "Don't let her." Nakisha turned her head. Evelyn had stepped over both of them. She'd stuffed the pendant into the structured green handbag on her arm, and now she'd reached across the counter, long arm, manicured hand, for the order pad. For what was under the order pad? The folder. The corner of it showed, cream against the dark wood, the corner she'd tucked away 2 hours ago, with the name of the fund printed on it, and Evelyn's fingers were closing on it. No, Nikisha said it, and moved in the same half-second. She kept one arm around Heijin and she threw the other up and out, and her palms slapped down flat on the pad, on the folder, pinning it to the counter under Evelyn's descending hand. Their fingers met on the paper. Nikisha's were younger, and there were more of them, and they were not letting go. "That's mine," Nikisha said. "That," Evelyn said through her teeth, "is not yours. You have no idea what you're holding." "Then let go of it and walk out." Evelyn didn't let go, her nails pressed white against the cream folder. Up close, she smelled of something expensive and cold, and up close Nikisha could see the effort it cost her to keep the smooth voice smooth, a small muscle jumping at the hinge of the jaw, a vein standing at the temple under the perfect hair. This woman had walked in expecting to be handed things. Now she was wrestling a waitress on a diner floor over a piece of paper, and the waitress wasn't tiring. "You want to be careful," Evelyn said, low enough that Ruth couldn't catch it over the phone. "Girls who get in the middle of this, they don't get out the way they got in." "I'm not in the middle," Nikisha kept her hand where it was. "I'm right here, on the floor, with her." She tipped her head an inch toward Heejin without taking her eyes off Evelyn. "You put her here. I'm just the one who stayed." They stayed like that a full second. 2 hands on a folder, an old woman on the floor between them, Ruth's fingers finally lifting the phone off the wall cradle. Evelyn's ice slate eyes came down and met Nikisha's dark ones. And whatever Evelyn saw there, it wasn't what she'd walked in expecting. She'd walked in expecting a waitress. She was looking at a wall. "You don't know," Evelyn said, quieter now, almost curious, "what these people do to girls who hold things that don't belong to them." "I know she went down and you didn't blink." Nikisha's hand didn't move. "That's all I need to know about you." Behind Evelyn, Ruth's voice climbed, flat and clear, into the phone. "Yeah, Halston Street, Marlowe's Diner. I got a woman assaulting an elderly customer and trying to rob another. You send somebody now." Evelyn's head turned an inch toward the sound. 1 inch. It was enough. Her weight shifted. Her grip on the folder loosened for a fraction of a breath, and Nikisha dragged the whole thing, pad, folder, pen, off the counter and down, and tucked it against Heijin's body inside the circle of her own arms, so that to get it now, Evelyn would have to go through both of them, with a witness on the line to the police. Evelyn straightened slowly. She looked at the 2 women on the floor. She looked at the diner owner with the phone to her ear. She looked, last, at the photograph still lying on the counter. Elijah, the Korean man, the boy with his treasure, and she did the math on how much she could carry out that door before a squad car turned onto Halston. She took the photograph. She slid it off the formica with 2 fingers and into the green bag with the pendant, and she stepped back, and she smoothed her coat, and the practiced sympathy came back over her face like a mask fished out of a pocket. "She has episodes," Evelyn announced to the empty diner, to Ruth, to the phone, to no one. "This entire thing will be very embarrassing for all of you when the doctors explain it. I tried to help. Remember that I tried to help." Her eyes dropped one last time to Nikisha. "You're going to wish you'd never touched any of it." "Ma'am," Ruth called out. "The door's the thing you came in through." Evelyn went to it. At the threshold she paused, framed in the gray light off Halston Street, the forest green coat and the golden hair and the green bag heavy now, with jade, and a photograph she had no right to. She didn't look back. The bell struck once as the door let her out. For a moment, nobody in the diner made a sound, but the old woman breathing. Then Heijin's hand tightened on Nikisha's apron, and she pulled her close enough that her lips were almost at Nikisha's ear, and every careful stone-by-stone sentence she'd been laying down all afternoon collapsed into 3 fast words: urgent, in a voice that had dropped its politeness entirely. She took the wrong one. Nikisha pulled back, just far enough to see her face. What? The photograph. Heijin's mouth moved into something that was almost a smile. There on the floor with her glasses gone, and her hip already darkening under the taupe cloth. It is a copy. I am old. I am not stupid. The real one, the token, the thing your father wanted you to have. Her eyes went to the bundle crushed against her chest, the pad, the folder, the half-coin still trapped under Nikisha's palm. She did not get it. You did. Somewhere out on Halston, a car door slammed. An engine turned over, and under the counter, wedged behind the folder in Nikisha's grip, the torn half of metal with its half a word, Orner, cut clean where the world had snapped it, pressed cold into her skin, waiting for the half that matched it. Nikisha found the glasses first, under the counter, one lens smudged, the frame bent at the hinge but whole. She unhooked her arm long enough to fit them back onto the old woman's face, hooking the wire gently over each ear, the way you'd do for a child, and Heijin let her, watching her the whole time. Can you sit? Nikisha asked, slow. Tell me if the hip screams. The hip complains. Heijin let herself be eased up against the base of the counter, back to the cabinet, legs out. She kept one hand knotted in the bundle. It does not scream. I have a hip that has survived worse rooms than this one. Nikisha knelt in front of her, close, and did the thing she did for every frightened person who ever sat down in her section. She made her own face still, and her own hands slow, so the fear across from her would have nothing to catch on. She pressed the back of 2 fingers to the papery cheek. Warm, not clammy, good. You're not confused, Nikisha said. Not a question either, giving it back to her. No, you knew she'd come. I hoped I would reach you first. Heijin's mouth trembled and then firmed. I was slow. I am always slower than her, but not this time. This time I brought the copy for her to take, and I brought the truth for you. Her eyes went to the bundle, to Nikisha's hand still cupped over the half-token beneath the folder. Keep your palm there. Do not let anyone see it, not the police, not anyone. That half is worth more than this building. Ruth crouched down with them, phone still hot in her hand, glasses swinging on their cord. Police are 4 minutes out, she said. Somebody want to tell me what in God's name just walked into my diner? Heijin looked at Nikisha. Not at Ruth. At Nikisha. When the man in the black suit comes, she said, and he will come, do not run from the dragon. The dragon is not the one you fear. What man? Nikisha said. Her arms tightened. What dragon? You don't get to say a thing like that and stop. But the old woman only closed her eyes and held on, her small hand a knot in the red fabric, and outside the second car door slammed, closer now, and the light through the big window off Halston went darker, and then darker still, as something large stopped at the curb and did not move on. The bell over the door did not ring so much as get pushed aside, and the man who filled the frame had to turn his shoulders to come through it. Nikisha felt Heijin's hand tighten in the red fabric before she saw why. She looked up from the floor. He stood just inside the threshold, and the light off Halston caught the left side of his neck, and there it was, a black dragon inked from the soft place under his ear, curling down, vanishing under the collar of a black shirt buttoned high but not to the top. Full black suit, shoulders like a doorway. He stood there, and the whole diner seemed to hold its breath around him. So this was the man in the black suit. This was the dragon. He did not look at Nikisha first. He looked at the counter, at the surface where the pendant had sat 2 minutes ago and was not sitting now. His eyes moved across the coffee cups, the overturned stool, the pen on the tile, reading the room the way a man reads a room he has walked into too late. Then he found the 2 women on the floor. Ruth stood up fast, phone still in her hand, and put her body half a step between him and them. "We're closed," she said. Her voice did the thing it did with drunks and bill collectors, flat and final. "Police are 4 minutes out. You can wait outside like everybody else." He did not move toward her. He did not move at all for a moment. His eyes had stopped on Hae-jin, on the small gray head, the tilted glasses, the moss-green cardigan bunched at the shoulder, where a hand had shoved her down. Something in his face came apart. It was fast, and it was quiet. A man built like a wall, and for 1 second the wall had a crack running through it. His lips parted. When the word came out, it came out in Korean first, low, almost nothing, and then again, in English, like he needed to hear himself say it to believe it. "Ioma?" Hae-jin's whole body went still against Nikisha's arms. "Mother?" Nobody breathed. Marco had come to the pass-through from the kitchen and stopped there with a towel in his hands. The clock on the wall ticked, and it was the loudest thing in the room. Hae-jin lifted her head. Her glasses had slid to the end of her nose, and she did not push them up. She looked at the big man in the black suit, and her chin was shaking, and she looked at him the way you look at a photograph you thought had burned. "Min-jae," she said. His name, not a question, a thing she had been holding in her mouth for a long time. He took 1 step and stopped himself, hard, like a man hitting a wall he'd built for his own protection. His hand came up halfway and hovered. "You're dead," he said. And it was not cruel. It was the voice of a boy. "We buried you. I carried it. I was 19. I carried the—" His jaw locked. "There was a body. There was a box," Hae-jin said. 3 words, and the room shifted under all of them. Nikisha felt it move through Hae-jin's small frame like current, the way the old woman drew herself up off the floor an inch, spine finding itself. This was why she'd walked from the station on a hurt hip. This was the whole reason she'd come. Min-jae's hand was still hanging in the air. He looked from his mother to the young black woman holding her, really looked at Nikisha now, at the red dress, at the watch riding on its chain at her collar, at the way her arms stayed locked around the old woman's shoulders and did not loosen because a big man had entered the room. "Who are you?" he said, low. "The one who caught her when your family knocked her down," Nikisha said. She kept her voice even. She kept her palm flat over the metal pressed into Hae-jin's side, where he couldn't see it. "Ask them about that." His eyes came back to the shove marks on his mother's cardigan, to the stool on its side, to the glasses hanging off her face. Somebody read that scene in one pass, and his shoulders changed. The crack in the wall closed, and something colder set behind it. "Who did this?" he said, not to Nikisha, to the room, to the air. Ruth answered, because Ruth was not afraid of a suit. Woman in a green coat, blonde, called her by name, called her a liar, put her on the floor, and tried to walk out with what wasn't hers. She jerked her chin at the door. "You just missed her. Friend of yours?" Min-jae's face told them the answer before his mouth did. A muscle jumped in his jaw. "Green coat," he repeated. "She said family," Hae-jin said. She got a hand under herself on the tile. Nikisha moved with her, taking the weight, easing her up so she sat against the base of the counter instead of sprawled on the floor. The old woman winced when her hip took the angle and then breathed through it. She said she came to bring me home. A small, dry sound came out of her that was not quite a laugh. Home, that is a funny word in her mouth. "Evelyn," Min-jae said the name like setting down something heavy. "My aunt." Your aunt, Jin agreed. He crossed the floor then. Not fast, careful, the way big men learn to move around small women, and he went down on one knee in front of his mother, and up close the difference in them was almost unbearable. The wall of a man and the 100 pounds of her. He did not touch her. He held his hands where she could see them. His eyes were wet, and he was furious about it. They told me, he said, that you were sick, that you went home to the coast to be near the water, and you got sick, and it was fast, and by the time they reached me, it was... He stopped. Dae-sung signed the papers. He handled everything. He said I was too young to see you like that. He said... The word caught in his throat, and he forced it out. He said, closed casket. Closed casket, Jin said softly. Yes, I imagine it was. Nakisha watched the son's face do the math and hate the total. Ask her, Jin said, and now her voice found an edge, the edge of 11 years. She lifted a thin finger and pointed at the door Evelyn had walked through. Ask your aunt why she needed you to believe I was dead. Ask her what a living mother could have told you that a dead one could not. She leaned toward her son, and the glasses finally fell off her nose, and she let them hang from the cord at her chest. Ask her about the port. Ask her whose name is on the concession. Ask her, Min-jae, and watch her hands when she answers. He didn't move. Whatever he was, whatever he'd become in the years they'd handed him a false grave, it had not prepared him for a live woman on the floor of a diner, telling him he'd been walked like a dog on a leash for 11 years. That's not possible, he said, but he said it the way a man says it when he already knows it's possible. When the possible has been sitting under his own roof, pouring his coffee, signing his documents, calling him nephew. Outside, faint, a siren wound up somewhere across the grid. Not close yet, but coming. Ruth heard it too. 3 minutes, she said, to no one and everyone. Min-jae's head turned toward the sound, and Nakisha saw the calculation run across him. A man who did not want to be found kneeling on a diner floor when a squad car pulled up, a man with a dragon on his neck and a name in this city. He stood. He looked down at his mother, and the war on his face was open now. Want against training, blood against caution. I have to take you somewhere safe, he said. Now, before they come, we can... I have people outside, I can... He reached for her arm, gentle, and started to lift. No. The word was small, and it stopped 200 pounds of him cold. Jin did not fight the hand on her arm. She simply did not go with it. She let her weight hang like a stone and looked up at her son and said it again, slower. No, not without her. He blinked. Without. He followed his mother's eyes to Nakisha, the waitress. Her name is Nakisha Palmer, Hyejin said. She is Elijah's daughter. And Nakisha watched a second thing come apart in the man's face, right behind the first, before the first had even finished. Palmer, he said. The name landed on him like a hand on the back of the neck. His eyes swung to her, to the watch again, the watch she wore, the watch that had stopped at 11:40, 11 years ago, and something moved in him that was not recognition of her, but recognition of the name attached to a driver, a cargo, a night, a hole in his own history he had never been allowed to look into. Your father was Elijah Palmer, he said. Is, Nakisha said. Quiet, steady, was. Nobody ever showed me a body either. The two of them looked at each other across the old woman on the floor, and for 1 second the whole tangled thing hung visible in the air between them. His mother, her father, a box that wasn't a coffin, a truck that came back clean, a green coat that had just walked out the door with a copy of a photograph and thought it had won. I don't understand what's happening, Min-jae said, and it was the most honest thing he'd said since he came through the door. "Neither did your mother, once," Hee-jin said. "Neither did Elijah, at the start. That was the trick of it. Nobody understands until it is too late to say no." She reached up and closed her small hand over her son's wrist, over the luxury watch on it, and held on. "I am not going to a safe house. I am not going to any house of yours where your aunt can reach me by phone before you reach the front hall. Do you hear me? I spent 11 years being dead so that you would be easy to steer. I am done being convenient." His jaw worked. "Then where?" "Wherever she goes." Hee-jin nodded at Nikisha. "This girl has something. Her father left it to her. Not to me, not to you. Half of something. I brought her the other half tonight." She said it plain, and Nikisha felt the metal disc warm under her palm and did not lift her hand. "If you want the truth about the box they buried in my name, you will not get it from me, and you will not beat it out of the air. You will get it because these two families are tied together at the wrist, and the only knot that holds it is her." Min-jae looked at Nikisha, a long look, weighing, the look of a man who was used to being the largest force in any room and had just been informed he was not. "Is that true?" he said to her. "You have something of my father's, of her husband's." "I have something of my father's," Nikisha said. "What it means, I'm still finding out. But your aunt tried very hard to leave here with it tonight, and she put your mother on the floor to try. She let that sit. She missed. So you can decide right now which one of them you believe." The siren wound louder. 2 blocks, maybe less. Ruth stepped in, hard and fast, a woman who had run this room for 30 years. "Whatever you're deciding, decide it moving," she said. "Because when that car stops out front, I'm telling them exactly what I saw, and I saw a blonde woman assault a senior citizen and try to rob my customer. I'm not lying for anybody, not her, not you." She looked at Min-jae and did not flinch. "So if you're one of the good ones tonight, you'll be gone before they need your name. And if you're one of the bad ones, you'll be gone anyway." He almost smiled. It didn't reach anything. "You run a hard house," he said. 30 years, Ruth said. 2 minutes. Min-jae made his decision the way Nikisha would think later. He probably made all of them, all at once, fully, no visible seam. He crouched again, and this time he slid one arm behind his mother's back and one under her knees and lifted her off the floor like she weighed nothing, and Hee-jin let him, one thin hand fisting the lapel of the black suit, her glasses swinging on their cord. "Careful of her hip," Nikisha said, on her feet now. Left side. She hit the counter and the tile. "I've got her." He said it low, to his mother, not to Nikisha, but he adjusted his arm anyway. Then, to Nikisha, over his shoulder, already moving. "You. What do you drive?" "The bus," Nikisha said. "Not tonight." He was at the door. Han Jun-suk had appeared in the frame, from somewhere on the sidewalk, charcoal suit, an earpiece, a face that took in the scene in one flat pass and asked nothing. Min-jae spoke 3 words of Korean, and the man's eyes cut to Nikisha, to Ruth, to the siren glow starting to wash the street beyond the glass. "I'm not getting in a car with you," Nikisha said. "I don't know you. I know one thing about you, and it's a tattoo." "Then you'll know 2 things by morning," Min-jae said. He shifted his mother against his chest. "You have something my family has killed for. My aunt knows you have it now. She saw your face. She knows this room. She knows this street. She'll know your grandmother's building by breakfast." His eyes held hers and there was no threat in them, which somehow made it worse. "You are not safe in the place she just watched you defend. Neither is the old woman upstairs on Halston with the door they skipped. You want to wait for the police? Wait for them. Tell them everything, and then tell me who protects you at 2 in the morning, when they've gone home, and Evelyn hasn't." The words went into Nikisha like a key going into a lock she hadn't known was there. Grandma Cora. The door they skipped. The 30 days. It had all been one thing this whole time, and she had felt it and not been able to prove it. And here was a man with a dragon on his neck, saying it out loud, connecting the two ends of the wire she'd been holding for 11 years. She hated that he was right. "I'm not leaving Ruth to clean this up alone," she said. "Go," Ruth said instantly. She was already gathering the overturned stool, already arranging the scene into something she could narrate. "I've got the police. I've got the diner. I had it before you were born. Baby, I'll have it after tonight." Her green eyes softened 1 degree, just for Nikisha. "But you take care of who takes care of you. That old woman came a long way to find you. Don't make her chase you too." Hye-jin, from the cradle of her son's arms, turned her head and found Nikisha's face. "Come," she said. Not an order. A hand, extended across a gap. "He is not the one you were told to fear. I told you that on the floor. The dragon is not who you fear." Her thin fingers uncurled from the black lapel and reached out an inch. "The one in the green coat is. And she is out there right now, deciding what to do about you. Come where she has to go through him to reach you." The siren stopped. Not faded, stopped. Which meant it had arrived. Which meant a car door somewhere at the top of the block. Which meant seconds. Nikisha's hand went to her collar, to the watch. 11 years of not being able to prove the thing she knew. 11 years of filing other people's eviction notices and reading other people's bad news and keeping her father's caderno in a drawer because 2 lawyers had shrugged at it. And now the whole locked door was swinging open in a diner at closing time, and the price of walking through it was trusting a stranger she'd been warned about by a woman she'd known for 1 hour. She looked at Hye-jin's outstretched fingers. She looked at the metal disc she could feel against her own ribs, half a word, half a truth. She looked at Min-jae, who was watching her decide and, to his credit, not rushing her, even with the light of the law starting to slide red across the ceiling of the diner. "The papers come with me," Nikisha said. "All of them. My bag. Behind the coat rack. Nobody touches it but me." "Get it!" Min-jae said. She was already moving. She pulled the thick folder from behind the rack, the neighborhood's whole grief in one battered sleeve, and the funds file from under the order pad, and she slid the pen into her apron out of habit, and she kept her forearm pressed to the place where the half-coin rode, and she came back across the diner floor, with her braids swinging over her shoulder, and her chin up. Behind the glass, red light broke fully across the window off Halston, and a shadow of a squad car slid to the curb where the black one had been, and Ruth Calder squared her shoulders toward the door to meet it, and the son carried the mother out the back, and Nikisha Palmer, Elijah's girl, the girl in the red dress, the one the whole thing had been waiting on for 11 years, took one last look at the only room she'd ever felt safe in, and followed a dragon out into the dark. The car was black and low, and it swallowed the 3 of them without a sound. Nikisha slid in last, the bundle pressed against her ribs, the folder from behind the coat rack digging into her hip, and she watched the diner shrink in the window until Ruth's shape in the doorway was a smudge under the neon. Then Halston Street was gone. Nobody talked for 4 blocks. Hye-jin lay across the back seat with her head near her son's knee, breathing slow, one hand still curled around the strap of her cloth bag. Min-jae sat rigid, jaw set, watching the mirrors more than the road. Jun-sok drove, and Nikisha kept her forearm flat over the half-coin under the fold of her apron, because a woman who had just been shoved to the floor over that piece of metal did not put it down for anyone, dragon or not. "Where?" she said. One word. "Somewhere Evelyn does not have a key," Min-jae answered. "That's not a place. That's a wish." His eyes flicked to her in the mirror. He almost smiled. He didn't. They crossed the river. The city changed under them. The low storefronts giving way to glass, the glass giving way to a gated drive, and a house that sat back from the road like it was ashamed of being seen. Not a mansion the way the movies did it. Worse, quiet money. The kind that didn't need to shout, because it had never once been told no. Nikisha did not get out when the car stopped. Min-jae came around, opened her door, and stood there with the night behind him. "You'll be safe here." "I'll be trapped here." She stayed put. "Your family owns this store too. You said it yourself. Evelyn's your aunt. Your uncle signed a dead woman's papers. Whatever this house is, it's got their fingerprints on the walls." She nodded at the dark windows. "I go in there. I'm inside their map." Hee-jin's voice floated up from the seat, thin but flat. "She's right, Min-jae." He turned his head. "She's Elijah's," the old woman said. "Elijah never walked into a room he couldn't walk out of. Not until the last one." A pause. "Take us somewhere with your name on it. Only yours. Bought after. Nothing they touched." Jun-suk said, "Lo, the Cheonan place." Min-jae was quiet a second. Then he closed Nikisha's door, gently, from the outside, and got back in. The second house was smaller, and it smelled like new paint and cold coffee. No family portraits, no history. A kitchen with a long steel table and one wall that was all screens, dark now. Jun-suk carried Hye-jin in and set her on a couch, and a woman in scrubs came from somewhere and knelt to look at the hip, and Nikisha stood in the middle of it all with her bundle and refused to let go of any of it. Min-jae watched her not let go. "You can put the papers down," he said. "I put the papers down 2 hours ago." A woman in a green coat tried to take them off the floor. Nikisha's chin lifted. "So no." He held up both hands, the same gesture he'd made kneeling in front of his mother. Palms out, nothing hidden. "Then keep them. But I need one thing from the bundle, and I need you to hand it to me. Not me, take it. The half." She didn't move. "You know what it is," he said. "You've known since the old woman said the word. Cornerstone." Her stomach dropped, because she had not said that word out loud. Not once. She'd only thought it, standing over the counter, watching the torn letters order line up in her head. "How do you—" "Because I have the other half." He reached into his jacket, slow, and drew out a folded square of cloth, and unwrapped it on the steel table, and there it was, a torn piece of metal, the size of a large coin, ragged along one edge, and stamped across its face in cut letters, CORNS. Broken mid-word, the other side of the tear. Nikisha's breath went shallow. "My mother gave me this before the box," Min-jae said. "Before they told me she was dead. I was 19. She said one day a girl would bring the rest. She didn't say your name. She said a color." His eyes came up, red. Slowly, because slow was the only speed her hands would go, Nikisha lifted her forearm off the fold of the apron. She took out the half she'd guarded since the floor of the diner. She set it on the steel table an inch from his, and she pushed it the rest of the way with one finger, so that no one could ever say he took it. The two ragged edges met. CORNERSTONE. Cornerstone. And in the seam where the metal joined, hidden by the tear, a line of numbers was stamped that neither half had shown alone. A string of digits, and 2 letters. A registration, a hull number. Min-jae looked at it for a long time. When he spoke, his voice had dropped somewhere underneath itself. "That's not the fund. That's the ship." "What ship?" "The one that carried the cargo the night your father disappeared." He didn't look up. "The one my family said sank. The one there was an insurance claim on. The one that paid for that first house you wouldn't walk into." Now he looked up. "It didn't sink. It got a new name and a new flag, and it's been running the same port for 11 years. They put it under a lamp with a magnifier, and Junsuk photographed the seam from 4 angles, and the woman in scrubs finished with Hye-jin's hip, bruised deep, not broken, and Hye-jin waved everyone off and sat up straight against the cushions like a small green queen and started talking, because it was time, and she had waited 11 years for it to be time. "Ask me the question," she said to her son. "The one I told you to ask Evelyn. Ask me instead. I'll answer faster, and I won't lie with my hands." Min-jae sat. "Why did they need me to believe you were dead?" "Because a widow can be robbed," Hye-jin said. "A living wife cannot. When your father died, everything he built, the company, the port lease, the ships, passed by law. To me first, then to you. Evelyn married your uncle for exactly one reason, and it was not love and it was not you. It was the signature line, and a signature line with me alive on it is worth nothing." She smoothed the blanket over her knees. "So they buried a box, and they gave you a funeral, and they gave me a room by the coast, and a woman to watch the door, and they told everyone the grief had taken my mind. Confusion. Episodes. The same word Evelyn used tonight. They practiced that word for a decade." Nikisha felt the room tilt. "And my father?" The old woman's eyes came to her and softened and hardened at the same time. "Your father worked for my husband when my husband was alive and honest. When my husband died, the men who took the company kept Elijah on because Elijah knew the roots and Elijah asked no questions." A pause. "For a while, they put 2 halls on him he didn't choose, made him think he owed, then a 3rd, and on the 3rd he opened a crate he wasn't supposed to open, and after that, Elijah asked every question there was." "What was in the crate?" "Proof," Hye-jin said, "that the ship that sank didn't, that the debts on the shopkeeper's street were forged in an office, not owed, that the cargo my husband was supposed to have lost was diverted the night he died, and that my husband did not die of his heart the way the certificate says." Her voice did not shake. That was the worst part. It did not shake at all. He was helped. Min-jae had gone very still. "By your uncle," Hye-jin finished. "Dae-sung, who signed my death the same hand he signed everything, and Evelyn stood behind the pen and told him where to press." Nobody said anything. The magnifier lamp buzzed. Min-jae stood so fast the chair skidded. He crossed to the wall of dark screens and pressed something, and one of them woke, and on it was a document he'd carried a long time. Nikisha could tell by the way he didn't have to search for it. A death certificate, his mother's name at the top, a date 11 years old, a signature at the bottom, in a hand she now knew belonged to a man named Dae-sung. "They gave me this," he said, "framed, on a shelf. I bowed to it every year." His voice was doing something dangerous and low. "And there was a lab report attached, tissue match, confirmation of identity. I never questioned a lab." Hye-jin's mouth tightened. "Whose tissue?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Min-jae turned. "Because it wasn't yours. You're sitting on my couch. So either the lab lied, or the sample was somebody else's, or the report was written before anyone died." He looked at the certificate on the screen. "I can prove all 3. I kept the original. The forgers were sloppy in the one place people never check. They dated the lab work before the date of death. 2 days before. Then it's on paper," Nikisha said. "The fraud is on paper, in their own hand, wrong by 2 days." "It's on paper," he agreed. "A living woman and a certificate that killed her before she was sick. A lab report a court can pull." "And the man who signed it, he didn't finish. He didn't have to." Hye-jin looked at her son across the cold light of her own false death. "You want a cheek swab," she said, "to match me to me, so no lawyer in that room can call me a confused old woman who wandered in off a train." "Yes, then take it now." She lifted her chin, delicate and iron. "Take 2. Send 1 to a lab that has never heard the Kang name. I've been dead 11 years, Min-jae. I would like, very much, to be alive on a document for once. The woman in scrubs came with a swab, and Hae-jin opened her mouth like she was doing everyone a favor, and Nakasha watched a mother let her son prove she was breathing, and had to look at the window for a second. Elijah understood before I did. Hae-jin went on, quieter. He came to me, the last time I saw a free man come through a door, and he said, "They will kill me for what's in here, so I'm going to split it. Half where they'll look, half where they'd never think to." He wrote it in a book only he could read. Codes, from an old job. He said, "If it comes apart, the girl in the red dress at the Marlowes will have the piece that matters, and the boy Min-jae will have the piece that finds the girl, and my wife." She touched the empty place at her throat where the jade had hung. "My wife will carry the face." Nakisha's hand went to her chest before she told it to. The watch stopped at 11:40. 11 years of never once being wound. "That's why the watch stopped," she said, and it wasn't a question, it came out flat and stunned. He said it. 11:40. "That's not when it broke. That's a time," Min-jae said. "A departure," Hae-jin said. "Write it down. It matters later." Jong-suk pulled the hull number and ran it, and a laptop screen threw its cold light across the steel table, and there it was in a shipping registry. A vessel, reflagged twice, current owner, a holding company owned by a fund. Nakisha leaned in and read the fund's name off the glass, and her mouth went dry. Halverson Cornerstone. The same 3 vitrines with white paper on Halston Street. The same 30 days on her grandmother's door. The same folder a man in a graphite suit had slid across Ruth's counter a lifetime ago that afternoon. "It's one thing," she said. "It was always one thing. The street, the building, my father, your mother, one hand doing all of it." She straightened. "They didn't come for the neighborhood because it was poor. They came because my father hid the proof somewhere in it." "In the diner," Min-jae said. "You don't know that?" "No," he agreed. "But they do. They skipped your grandmother's door, you said. 4th floor, 4B. They serve every apartment in that building but that one. You don't skip a door because you forgot it. You skip a door because you're going to open it yourself when you're ready without a witness." Nakisha's blood went cold in a new way. Grandma Cora, alone in 4B with a green sofa and a phone, and no idea that the reason her door got skipped was a dead man's book. She reached for her own phone. "I have to call her, now." "Call her," Min-jae said. "But listen to me first." He put both hands flat on the table, on either side of the joined coin. "There's a clock. The port concession, the lease my father built, the one that runs the whole waterfront. It comes up for a vote. The board reassigns it or renews it. If it renews clean, everything they've forged gets a legal blessing, and every question dies with it. If it gets challenged with proof, it freezes, and they lose the machine that launders all of it. When's the vote?" 21 days. The number sat in the room like a stone dropped in still water. 21 days. Her grandmother had 30 on the eviction. Her father had been gone 11 years. And the whole thing came down to 3 weeks and a book written in codes she had never once been able to crack. 3 weeks, Nakisha said. 3 weeks. She called Cora anyway, right there, and stepped to the window, and when the old voice answered, sleepy, indignant, "That door is mine," Nakisha closed her eyes and breathed for what felt like the first time in an hour. "Grandma, lock the deadbolt and the chain. Don't open for the super. Don't open for anybody in a suit. I'll explain tomorrow. I love you." She listened. "No, I'm fine. I found something out about Daddy." A long silence on the line. Then Cora said something that made Nakisha's throat close, and she said, "Yeah, Yeah, I think he was trying to come home, and hung up before her voice could break in front of these people she didn't trust. When she turned around, Min Jae was watching her with something on his face she couldn't name and didn't want to. You'll both stay here, he said. You and your grandmother. I'll send Junsok for her tonight. Guards on the... No, he stopped. Here's how it goes, Nakisha said, and she walked to the steel table and put both her hands flat on it the way he had, mirror to mirror, and the joined coin lay between their palms. You don't get to send men for my grandmother in the dark. You send a man to her door in the dark. A 79-year-old woman has a heart attack before he says hello. I call her in the morning. I bring her myself, or she stays where she's happy with your people, watching the street from a distance. Her choice, not yours. Min Jae's jaw worked. Evelyn knows the building. Then your people watch the building. From the sidewalk, like the neighbors they're pretending to be. She held his eyes. And they don't cross the threshold. Not the lobby, not the stairs, not the hallway with the bad light on the third floor. A man in a good suit standing inside that building is the same as a man in a green coat to Cora. You want her safe. Keep your safety on the curb. Min Jae's eyes narrowed, weighing it. Then he nodded once. The curb. Second thing, the papers stay with me. The book stays with me. That coin, she looked down at the two halves touching. That coin gets photographed, and the photograph is yours, and the metal comes back in my hand tonight. You need it, you ask. Same as the half I already gave you, which I gave you, which you'll remember. A muscle moved in his cheek, and if I say no, then I walk out that gate with a bundle full of the only thing that can save your mother's name, and you can explain to her why the girl in the red dress left. Nakisha didn't blink. But you won't say no, because she said it herself. You're not who I'm supposed to be afraid of, so prove her right. The room was silent. Junsuk had gone motionless by the laptop. Hyejin, on the couch, had the ghost of something proud pulling at the corner of her mouth. Min Jae looked down at the joined coin a long moment. Then he picked up his half, only his half, and slid Nakisha's back across the steel to her, edge scraping, one finger, until it stopped under her palm, the same way she'd given it. A thing returned exactly as it was received. Photographs enough, he said. Third thing, Nakisha said, and now her voice dropped, because this was the one that cost her. When we prove it, and we're going to prove it, my father's name comes out clean, not a footnote, not a driver who got involved. Elijah Palmer hid the thing that brought your whole family down, and everyone who papered his street with white notices is going to know his name and know it was his. You don't get to win this quiet and leave him a ghost. That's the price of the coin. Say it back to me. Min Jae held her gaze. For a man who ran rooms by standing in doorways, he took his time. Your father's name, he said, comes out clean, in the open. Nakisha closed her hand around the half coin and felt the ragged edge bite her palm, and for the first time since a woman in a moss-green cardigan had turned a photograph over on Ruth's counter, she felt the floor stop moving under her. 21 days, she said, mostly to herself, and turned the number over. The buildings got 30, the votes got 21, so the vote comes first, and if we win the vote, the building's forged debt has no legal spine to stand the eviction on. Same hand, same fund. You pull one card, the rest fall. If we win, Min Jae said. When? She looked at him. You keep saying if. I served tables 11 years next to a folder I couldn't read. I'm done saying if. Across the room, Hyejin spoke, soft, to no one, and to all of them. 11:40, she said. Write it down. That watch didn't stop, child. It's been waiting for someone to ask it what time it is. And on the table, under the buzzing lamp, the photograph of the joined word, cornerstone, and the hull number hidden in the seam glowed on the laptop screen. And outside the gate, unseen, headlights slowed on the road, paused, and moved on into the dark. Nikisha had the notebook open flat on the steel table before the coffee finished brewing. She'd stopped sleeping around 3. The house made money-quiet sounds, a fridge somewhere, a guard shifting his weight by a door, and she filled the silence with her father's handwriting, column after column, the same 11-year wall she'd hit 100 times. TG4, HR9, a date, a number in the thousands, nothing. Then her thumb dragged past a row she'd read too fast. TG4, and beside it, small, a little slash mark she'd always taken for a smudge. She sat up straight. She knew that slash. She made that slash 40 times a night. At Marlowe's, the old order pad ran on a code Ruth's late husband had built in the 70s, back when the tickets went up on a wheel and Marco's father worked the flat top. Every table had a 2-letter tag. Every plate had a number. A slash meant on the fly, rush it, jump the line. TG wasn't cargo. TG was table grill. HR wasn't a route. HR was the hour a rush ticket landed. Her hands went cold. He didn't write a shipping log, she said, to no one, to the lamp. He wrote commandas. Min Jae came in from the hall in a black undershirt, the dragon high on his neck catching the light, and stopped when he saw her face. You slept? He hid it in plain sight. She spun the notebook toward him and jabbed a line. This isn't freight code. It's the diner's order code. My father worked mornings at Marlowe's before he drove. Ruth taught him the pad. He used the one language nobody hunting him would ever learn, because who studies a waitress ticket? She laughed once, ragged. Jinja. It was on the wall the whole time. Min Jae leaned over the page. Translate 1. Give me an hour with a clean sheet. She was already pulling paper. TG4/. That's not a grill. In his book, it's a swap. He gave every real thing a plate. A container becomes a table. A drop becomes a dessert. A name becomes a regular's usual. Her pen moved fast now. Sure, I can read my father. I've been able to read my father since I was 19. I just didn't know he was talking to me in the only handwriting I already knew. He watched her work. He watched her the way you watch a lock you've been told will never open start to turn. Then we have it, he said. Before the vote, we have the ledger. We have the key to the ledger. She didn't look up. Not the same thing, but close. By dawn, she had 11 lines clean. By 7, she had the shape of it. Dates that matched the hull number. A container that went to table 9. The same November, her father's truck came back empty, a comp for the owner that read, once you knew his hand, as a bribe logged and dated. Han Jun-suk photographed each page as she finished it. Hye-jin sat wrapped in a blanket on the low couch, hips stiff, and watched her son's face more than the pages, and said nothing, because for once, nothing needed saying. It should have been the best morning of Nikisha's life. Then Jun-suk's phone buzzed, and buzzed again, and a third time, fast, the way a phone buzzes when something is spreading. He read it, his jaw set. He turned the screen face down on the steel, a small thing, a wrong thing, the kind of move a careful man makes right before he has to hand you something that hurts. Show me, Nikisha said. It's edited. Show me. He turned the phone over. It was the diner. It was her. 16 seconds of it, shot from a phone by the front window, the angle low and mean. And it was true. Every frame. That was the problem. There she was on the floor, arms up, hands out, her mouth open. There was Evelyn stumbling back with a hand to her chest. There was the flash of the older woman going down. But the cut had eaten the order. In the real thing, Evelyn shoved Hye-jin, and Nikisha dropped to catch her. In this thing, the shove was gone. It opened on Nikisha's hands already up, already moving, and Evelyn already reeling, so that the eye filled in the only story the frames allowed. The black woman lunged, the older white woman fell. They'd slowed it at the worst 1/10 of a second. They'd added a caption in clean white letters. Waitress attacks elderly customer. GoFundMe for the victim in bio. And under it, already, a number climbing. Shares. Then another number. Comments she would not read and read anyway. She's dangerous. Fire her. Someone find out where she works. Someone already had. Her Marlowe's, she said. Her voice came out flat and far away. They tagged the diner. The diner's little review page, 30 years of 4.5 stars from truckers and church ladies, was underwater by breakfast. 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, racist staff, unsafe, wouldn't go if you paid me. Ruth called at 8:14, and Nikisha could hear it behind her voice, the phone ringing off the hook, and nobody in a booth, the bell over the door silent, on a Tuesday that should have had the Pedreros at table 12. "Baby, it's a ghost town in here," Ruth said. She was trying to sound like it was weather. "Pharaoh came by to sit with me. Brought soup, nobody's eating. Don't you dare feel bad. You hear me? Don't you dare. Turn the reviews off, Ruth. Turn the page private." Marco's trying. Some man from a blog already called for a comment. A pause. And under it 30 years of a woman who did not spook. "I told him to eat glass." Nikisha almost laughed. It came out as something else. Minjae had gone very still by the window, phone in his hand, reading the same climbing numbers. "This is Evelyn," he said. "The GoFundMe routes to a management LLC, same registered agent as the fund." He said it like a man reading a chess move he should have seen. "She's not hiding it well. She doesn't need to. By the time anyone traces the money, the story's already true in 10,000 heads." "It is true," Nikisha said. "That's the sick part. She didn't make anything up. She just cut the part where she pushed a 64-year-old woman onto a floor." She pressed the heels of her hands to her eyes. "Igo. She left me holding a true thing shaped like a lie." "We released the full clip," Junsuk said. "Ruth's window camera. The whole 16 minutes. There's no camera at Marlowe's. Ruth's been meaning to for 9 years." Nikisha dropped her hands. "The only wide shot is inside somebody's head. Mine, hers. And a video the other side already cut to their liking." The room was quiet. Outside the gate, a delivery truck downshifted and moved on. Then the second thing. Hae-jin had been quiet on the couch, but she'd asked Jun-suk, an hour before all this, for the box. A flat archival box she'd carried out of somewhere 11 years dead, that she hadn't opened in front of her son yet. Now she set it on the steel table and lifted the lid with 2 fingers, and inside were papers gone soft at the folds, and one envelope she slid out and held a moment against her chest before she put it down. "Nikisha," she said, "there is something your father wrote that is not in the book." The handwriting on the front was his. Nikisha, if. Just that, if. Her whole body knew it before her hands did. She'd have known that block print anywhere. He'd labeled her lunch bags in it, her name in careful capitals so no other kid would take her sandwich. She opened it slow, 1 page. Both sides, her father's voice, coming across 11 years, in the only handwriting she'd ever trusted. She read it to herself first. Then, because her legs weren't holding her, and because they all had a right to it now, she read the middle of it out loud, and her voice did not stay steady, and she did not try to make it. He'd taken 2 loads he shouldn't have. That was the part. Before he understood, before the crate, before any of it. He'd run 2 halls he knew in his gut were dirty, because a man named on the page had put a number in front of him, and another number under the words. "Your daughter's tuition." And because Cora's heart pills had gone up that winter, And because he told himself 2 and no more. 2 and he'd walk clean. There is no such thing as 2, he'd written. I know that now. I want you to know, I knew it before the end. Nikisha stopped. The kitchen held its breath. He was coerced into the first 2, Minjae said, careful, and he broke the third open. That's not. I know what it is. She was still looking at the page. I know exactly what it is, and I know what they'll do with it. She looked up, and her eyes were wet, and her voice was not soft. You clear his name. You put it in the open, first, like you swore, and the very first thing that surfaces is this. 2 illegal runs, in his own hand, his own confession, dated and signed. They won't read the rest. Nobody reads the rest. She'll cut this the way she cut me. She laughed that ragged laugh again. Jesus, she doesn't even have to lie. My father handed her the knife 11 years ago. Heejin's hand found the edge of the table. He wrote it so you would not learn it from them. I know why he wrote it. Nikisha wiped her face with the flat of her wrist. 1 pass, done. I'm not angry at him. Don't. Nobody in this room gets to be soft about him right now. She folded the letter along its old creases. Exactly, corner to corner. I'm doing the math, that's all. I'm doing the math out loud, so you all stop looking at me like I'm about to break. Nobody said she was. Then the third thing. And the third thing was the one that took her knees. Her phone. Cora's ringtone. The little marimba she'd set, so she'd never miss her grandmother. She answered on the first note. Grandma. Baby. Cora's voice was small, in a way Cora's voice never was. There's a man in the hall with a paper on my door. Nikisha was already standing. What paper? Read me the top line. It's got a court stamp. Cora's breath came thin. It says it says 72 hours. Baby, it said 30 days. Yesterday, it was 30 days. Now there's a stamp says 72 hours, and a lockman measuring my door with a little tape. The eviction had been 30 days. The fund had accelerated it overnight. Nikisha understood the timing the way you understand a slap. Instantly, in the skin, before the mind catches up. The video dropped, the fund's lawyers moved, and somewhere a judge who'd never see Halston Street signed an emergency order because a management company had filed papers calling the tenant's family. The subject of a violent incident under investigation. They'd turned her into the reason to hurry. Don't open the door, Nikisha said. Grandma, chain and deadbolt, both, like I told you. Do not sign anything he hands you. Do not let the lockman past the frame. You put your body in that doorway and you say, "This door is mine." And you say nothing else. That door is mine, Cora said, steadier now, an old woman remembering she was made of harder stuff. Nikisha, where are you? What did you get into? I got into the truth, Grandma. I'm getting you out. I'm coming. You said morning. It is morning. She was already looking for her shoes. Stay behind your door. I love you. Put Pharaoh's number by the phone, and don't hang up on me twice. She ended the call and stood in the middle of that beautiful cold kitchen, with a dead man's letter in one hand, and a phone still warm from her grandmother's fear in the other, and she looked at Minjae, and for 1 second, she let him see all of it. So here's where I'm standing. Her voice was level again, the dangerous kind of level. By tonight, the whole city thinks I put my hands on an old woman. My boss's life's work is drowning in 1-star reviews because she was kind enough to let me bleed on her floor. My father's name, the one you swore, comes out clean and first, comes out with a confession stapled to it. And my grandmother has 3 days before a man with a tape measure owns her door. She counted it on her fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, and let the hand drop. 4 walls, and every one of them just moved in. Min-jae took a step toward her. The safe route is still. Don't. She held up the letter. Don't tell me about the mansion. Don't tell me about men in the dark bringing my grandmother out a service entrance so it looks like she ran. She doesn't run. Palmers don't run out the back. That's the whole thing they're counting on. That we'll be so scared we'll act guilty. She shook her head. No, I go get her myself. In daylight. In this dress. And anybody filming can film a woman walking her grandmother down her own front steps with her chin up. They'll film that too, Jun-suk said quietly. They'll cut it too. Then let them run out of things to cut. She turned to Hae-jin. You said the dragon isn't who I fear. Fine, I believe you. But I need him to stop protecting me and start proving me. Because a bodyguard can't fix this, and neither can a checkbook. The only thing that unmakes a lie this clean is a truth that's cleaner. She lifted the notebook, the letter, held them together. I have my father's whole ledger in a language only I can read. I have his confession that damns him and clears him in the same breath. If somebody hears the whole page, that's not nothing. That's a bomb, but a bomb in my hands right now just blows up in my face. Then whose hands? Min-jae said. She looked at him a long moment. Something crossed her that wasn't trust yet, but was in the same family. Mine, she said. Eventually, in the right room, in front of the right people, with a chain of custody so tight she can't slice a frame off it. She set the papers down, flat, careful, and squared them with 2 fingers, the way she'd square a check on a table. But that's the vote, and that's 21 days I had this morning, and might have 3 now. So first, she picked her shoes up off the floor. I go get my grandmother off Halston Street before that lockman earns his fee. Everything else waits behind that door. Min-jae reached past her and picked up his phone, and for the first time he didn't argue the route. Then I'm driving you into it, he said, not around it. You wait at the curb, she said, already moving, like a customer. She was 3 steps toward the hall when Jun-suk's phone lit a 4th time, and he looked at it, and this time he didn't turn it face down. He just said her name, once, in a voice that stopped her cold with 1 shoe on and 1 in her hand. They didn't just post the video, he said. Someone leaked a name to the same blog. Source 2. Court filings. He looked up. Elijah Palmer. They've already got his name, and they're already calling him a smuggler. The kitchen went silent enough to hear the fridge again. Nikisha stood in the doorway with her father's letter behind her on the steel, and her grandmother's fear still in her ear, and the whole city's story of her already written in white block letters. And she did not sit down, and she did not cry, and she did not run out the back. She put her 2nd shoe on. Then we're out of days, she said. Get the car. The car took Halston Street in full daylight, and Nikisha did not let Min-jae pass the curb. He stopped where she told him. She went up the 3 flights herself, in the cherry red dress, order pad still in the apron pocket. And she knocked twice and said 1 word, Grandma, and the deadbolt turned. Cora Palmer had her body against the door and a butter knife in her fist, 79 years old, and ready to use it. The locksmith in the hall took 1 look at the 2 of them and packed his tape and left. No papers signed. No door measured. Nikisha walked her grandmother out past the eviction notice, and she peeled that notice off the frame herself, folded it, and put it in the bag with everything else. Cora held the folded notice in her lap the whole ride and said nothing until the bridge. Then she said, Your daddy used to fold things exactly like that, small, so a big hand couldn't see how much it mattered. Nikisha kept her eyes on the road. She'd learned that from him too, and never known it until her grandmother said it out loud. By nightfall, they were back at the Cheonan place, and that was when Min-jae showed his hand. He had built a ledger, a fake one. Elijah's name on the cover. Elijah's order code style copied close enough to fool a lawyer. Numbers dangled just sloppy enough that a greedy woman would reach. He had let it leak through a broker Evelyn trusted, sold as the smoking gun she'd been hunting for 11 years. And Evelyn reached. She moved money to intercept it, moved it fast, moved it through the LLCs and the shell accounts and the Halverson routing lines, and every move lit up on Junsuk's screen like a road flare on a black highway. There, Min-jae said. That's her. That's every account. Nakisha watched the map bloom, then she watched something else bloom, and her stomach dropped. What's freezing? She said. Those. What are those? Junsuk didn't answer fast enough. Min-jae did. Supplier accounts. Downstream. When we flag the routing, the bank locks the whole tree until it clears. The whole tree. Nakisha stepped to the screen. She read the names. She knew names. Kim. That's the market. Halston and Third. That's On's laundry account. That's Min-jae. That's Pharaoh. These are my people. You froze my people to catch her. For 72 hours. Maybe less. They live on 72 hours. Her voice didn't rise. It went flat, which was worse. Ain makes rent in cash from a laundry that runs on float. Kim's produce order clears Thursday, or it rots on the truck. You just did to them what she did to Ruth. Cleaner, but the same. Min-jae's jaw worked. It catches Evelyn, and Elijah's name is in that bait. She was already flipping to it, already seeing it. You put his name on a fake ledger and let it out the door. You swore his name comes out clean, first, in the open, not smeared across a trap so a broker in the Halverson mailroom reads Palmer one more time and files it under smuggler. It buys us the whole account tree, every shell she's ever touched, in one night. At what cost? She spread her hand flat over the supplier names on the screen, covering them like she'd covered the coin on the diner floor. You know what On does when her account locks? She doesn't call a bank. She doesn't know a lawyer. She closes early, and she sits in the back, and she waits for it to be a mistake. For a week, and Kim eats the rotten produce cost himself because he'd rather starve quiet than beg. These people don't fight the machine, Min-jae. They just take the hit and get smaller. You know why? Because that's exactly what she counted on the whole street doing. Min-jae's mouth flattened. It was the only lure she'd bite. Then you found the wrong lure. She closed the laptop. Not slammed. Closed. Gentle. Final. We're done. Tonight. I'm not standing on the necks of Pharaoh and Anne to win a thing that's supposed to give them their street back. You unfreeze every one of those accounts by morning. You put out, publicly, that the Palmer ledger that leaked is a forgery, and you say who forged it, and you say why. Reparations, in the open, or I walk into that assembly on my own, with what I've got, and I let the chips fall on all of us, you included. The room held its breath. Hae-jin, on the low couch, watched her son the way she'd told him to watch Evelyn's hands. Junsuk's eyes went from the screen to Min-jae and stayed there, waiting. You've never lost a thing you didn't choose to lose, Nakisha went on, quieter now. So you don't know what it costs a woman to lose a Thursday. I do. I filed those losses for the whole block behind a coat hook for 3 years. So I'm telling you, you don't win this by making one more person on Halston Street disappear a little. You win it by making everything come back up into the light. Including his name. Especially his name. Min-jae looked at Nakisha a long moment. His hand opened and closed once. Then he picked up the phone. Unfreeze the tree, he told Junsuk. All of it. Now, eat the exposure. He set the phone down. And draft the retraction. Forgery. My name on it as the source. Not hers. He looked at Nakisha. It costs me the trap. Good, Nakisha said. Now it costs you the truth instead. That's the price. That was always the price. By dawn, the accounts were live. Kim's produce cleared. An's float came back. A single line went out through 3 legitimate channels, sourced to Kang Min-jae by name. The Elijah Palmer ledger circulating online is a fabrication. And here is the hand that made it. It didn't clear Elijah. Not yet. But it stopped the bleeding, and it put Min-jae's own name in the water instead of a dead man's. And it did one more thing. It made Evelyn think she'd won. Because a woman who's just watched her enemy publicly torch his own credibility gets bold, gets loose, gets to talking. Nakisha understood the real proof wasn't in any of it yet. Not the coin, not the deed, not the leaked forgery. 11 years her father had hidden the thing that mattered where only a waitress would look. The notebook was the key. The lock was somewhere she'd wiped down 10,000 times. She called Ruth at 6 in the morning. "The old order board," Nakisha said. "The one your husband hung, behind the register. The one nobody's taken down in 30 years because it's screwed to the stud. What about it? When did Elijah last work a morning shift for you?" A pause. Week before he went. Came in to fix the board. Matter of fact. Said the corner rattled. I told him leave it. It's rattled since Carter. Ruth's breath caught on the line. He didn't leave it. No, Nakisha said. He didn't. They went to the diner that same morning, before it opened, before the boycotted street woke up. Ruth had a screwdriver and a face set like she'd waited 11 years for exactly this and was scared to hope. "If it's nothing back there," Ruth said, "if it's just wall, I don't know what I do with that." Nakisha put a hand on the old woman's shoulder. "Then it's just wall, and we still have each other." But he fixed a board that rattled since Carter the week before he vanished. "Ruth, a man doesn't fix a 30-year rattle unless he's hiding something behind it." Nakisha took the board off the wall herself, the laminated old order board, curled at the edges, TG and HR and the slash marks faded into the coffee-brown grain, and behind it, screwed flat to the stud in a slim metal sleeve her father had built with a driver's hands, was the rest. Not half of anything. The whole. Original bills of lading, the reflagging paperwork with the hull number bare, not cut across a coin, photographs of the crate Elijah opened, dated in his own block hand, and a second cassette in a plastic case, labeled in order code, a recording of the 2 men who'd helped Hyjin's husband to a heart he didn't have. Nakisha held it and did not shake. She'd spent 11 years thinking her father ran out on her. He'd spent his last free week screwing the truth to a wall 4 feet from where she'd learned to carry a tray. The DNA came back the same afternoon. Neutral lab, sealed chain, hand-delivered. Seo Hye-jin was Seo Hye-jin, alive, the death certificate signed by Kang Dae-sung, a forgery datable to 2 days before a death that never happened. The cassette from the board, cross-matched to the hull number, cross-matched to the notebook Nakisha had cracked line by line, made a rope you could not cut with an editing app. Now they needed Evelyn's mouth. She gave it herself, bold, loose, talking. She came to the Cheonan gate the night before the vote, came to gloat, came to threaten, came because she thought the Palmer girl was finished and the boy had ruined himself. She came in the forest green coat with the structured shoulders, heels loud on the drive, and she wanted an audience, and Nakisha gave her one, from the shadow of the doorway, and let her run. "You think you did something," Evelyn said, "letting your little Mafia prince set his own name on fire for you. Sweet. Stupid. I've buried better hands than his." She laughed, low. "People like you always confuse noise for leverage." "Tell me about the grave," Nakisha said. Flat. An invitation dressed as a dare. And Evelyn, bold, loose, certain she'd already won, took it. Because people like Evelyn always say it all when they think the room is empty. She said she'd shoved the old woman and she'd do it again. harder. She said the body in Haejin's grave was a weighted box, and a coroner, who signed whatever the check said. She said Dae-sung held the pen, and she held Dae-sung. She said Elijah Palmer got exactly what a driver who reads his own cargo gets, and that his daughter would get less. Every word of it landed on Jun-suk's wire. Clean, wide, no cut possible. The whole shove, the whole confession, the whole false body ID, from the mouth that arranged it. "You wanted a wide shot," Nikisha said quietly, from the dark of the doorway. "There's your wide shot." Evelyn's face changed. Too late. Always. For her. Too late. The port concession went to assembly the next morning. 21 days. Run down to the last one. The room was full. City. The funds men in good suits. Dae-sung at the front with his graphite coat and his antique cufflinks and his rigid spine. Evelyn beside him, not yet knowing the floor had gone out from under her. Min-jae could have taken the podium. He had the standing, the name, the reach. He stepped back and let it go to the person the story belonged to. Nikisha Palmer walked to the front in the cherry red dress, not a lawyer's suit, the dress. She set the bundle down, and she did it the way her father taught a room to be fed. In order, nothing out of sequence. Chain of custody read aloud before a single item was touched. Evidence 1. Bill of lading, original, recovered from a sealed sleeve behind a fixed board at Marlowe's Diner, Halston Street, this Tuesday, in the presence of the owner. Photographed before removal. Here is the photograph. Here is the sleeve. She built it plank by plank, and she never raised her voice. Because a woman who raises her voice is a woman a room can dismiss, and she'd watch them try to dismiss her for a week. The hull number, bare, the seam where two half coins met, read into the record with both halves photographed, and the metal returned to her own hand. The reflag chain sank, resurfaced, sank again on paper, sailing the same port, 11 years under 3 flags, and one owner that traced up through the holdings to the Halverson Cornerstone Fund, the same fund that papered Halston Street, the same fund that skipped one door on the 3rd floor because it planned to open that door itself. The death certificate against the neutral DNA laid side by side on the screen, a lab report dated 2 days before a death that never happened, signed by the man in the graphite coat in the front row. The notebook, decoded, every line matched to a date, a container, a bribe logged as a comp for the owner, in a diner's order code her father learned from Ruth's dead husband before he ever drove a truck. And the confession, Evelyn's own voice, wide and whole, no cut possible, the shove and the box and the bought coroner and the pen she held, playing into a room that had spent 3 days believing a 16-second lie. She played the letter last, her father's letter, the whole page. The 2 halls he ran dirty, and the money slid under the words, "Your daughter's tuition," and Cora's heart pills that winter. She read the part where he wrote, "There is no such thing as two." She did not hide it. She laid his worst beside his bravest, and let the room hold both, because a clean truth is the only thing that unmakes a clean lie, and half a truth was what the enemy had counted on all along. "My father ran 2 loads he knew were wrong," she told them. "He wrote it down himself and signed it, so you'd hear it from him, and not from the people who killed him. For the 3rd one he wouldn't run. That's the man whose name they've been selling you as a smuggler. He's the reason this proof exists at all." Dae-sung stood up once, to object, to invoke the family, to reach for the word episodes one last time, the word rehearsed for a decade, the word that had done all his work for him. "This woman is confused," he began. "She has spells. She—" Seo Hye-jin rose from the 2nd row, moss green cardigan, the borrowed jade gone, but her spine entirely her own. "Say the rest," she told him, across the whole assembly, level. "Say I have spells. Say it to the lab report with my living blood on it. Say it to the certificate you signed 2 days before I was supposed to die. She turned to the room, not to him. My name is Seo Hye Jin. I am not confused. I have never once been confused. I was only convenient. Dai Sung's mouth closed. He sat down and did not rise again, and the word that had run his whole scheme died in the air where he'd dropped it. The vote didn't renew the concession. It suspended it, pending the criminal referral the recording forced onto the table before anyone left the room. Dae Sung was removed from every seat the family held by nightfall. Evelyn Kang was charged. The assault, the false body identification, the fraud, the leaked video traced back through the very LLC that Min Jae's retraction had already put on record. The Halverson cornerstone notes on Halston Street, the whole forged spine of debt, cracked the moment the hull number entered evidence. Pharaoh's board came down. On's came down. The paper on Cora's 4B, the door she'd stood behind with a butter knife, dissolved with the rest of a debt that never legally existed. Elijah Palmer's name went into the record cleared, in the open. First, the way it should have from the start, before the trap, which was the whole fight between them and the whole reason she'd broken it. He wasn't a smuggler in the filing. He was the witness who buried the truth where his daughter would find it, and paid for it with a departure a stopped watch had marked at 11:40 for 11 years. That night, Nakisha took the watch off the chain at her neck and set it on the steel table. She wound it, the first time it had been wound in 11 years, and she moved the hands off 11:40. Not because the time didn't matter, because it had done its job. It had marked the departure long enough for someone to read it. Now it could just be his watch again. It ticked in her palm, small and alive, and Cora put a hand over it, and Hae-jin put a hand over Cora's, and none of them said a word, because there wasn't one that fit. Nakisha took her settlement, money from the fund's collapse, from the reparations Min Jae had put in writing, and she did not buy a house across the river. She bought half of Marlowe's. Ruth Calder kept her name over the door and got a partner young enough to fight the next 30 years, and the first thing they hung back on the wall, screwed to the stud, was the old order board, empty sleeve behind it now. The board itself, back where it rattled since Carter. The street came back slow. The reviews turned, one honest star at a time, 30 years of them climbing back out of the hole a 16-second lie had dug. On brought soup that people ate. Pharaoh re-lettered his window himself. Kim's Thursday produce cleared, and kept clearing. The 4 bricklayers took table 12 again like nothing on earth had moved, and Nakisha served them like nothing had, and that ordinary morning was the loudest victory in the room. Hae-jin took back her own name, her own house, her own jade, the real pendant recovered from the evidence Evelyn had bragged she'd taken, the copy that had fooled her all the way to a courtroom. Min Jae buried nothing that year. He watched his mother pour her own tea with her own hands, and he learned, slowly, that a family could be a thing you protect in the open instead of a thing you protect by lying. Min Jae came the last evening, in the black suit, the dragon at his neck that Hae-jin had told her not to fear. He stood at the door and he asked, in that quiet way of his, if he could walk her home. Nakisha looked at him a long moment. She thought about her father, who trusted a room to be fed in order. She thought about her grandmother's door, which was hers. She thought about a man who'd frozen her people to catch a monster, and then unfroze them because she made him choose. "You can walk me home," she said. She picked up an order pad and a pen, and she set them on the counter in front of him, next to a menu and a cup she filled to the line. "But you wait, right there. Like anybody who comes through that door." He looked at the coffee. He looked at her. Then Kang Min Jae, who had never in his life waited for anyone, pulled out the stool at the counter of a diner he did not own, and he waited, like a customer, for the woman in the cherry-red dress to finish her shift. She finished it in her own time, then she turned the sign and let him walk her home. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Tell me, K-Fam, have you ever carried a dead man's watch and a half-finished notebook, waiting tables for the very people who wanted to erase you? Have you ever had somebody edit the truth on video and turn a whole crowd against you? And when a powerful man offered you a safe mansion, would you have set your own terms instead of hiding? Mark my words, K-Fam. Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, truth, and legacy, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.